Supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Dynamic Dog Owner, the podcast dedicated to support you in your dog parenting journey to help you tackle some of the common dog training problems or experiences or emotions you feel when living with a dog, which, as we know, isn't always plain sailing. So today we're going to be looking at what is seen as silly or naughty behaviour. I'm sure you've experienced some of the things I'm going to mention, but we're going to be looking at why they actually happen and how they're not actually silly or naughty in the first place and what we can do to help them. And I suppose this is probably aimed at those of you with a younger dog, because you're simply more likely to see these issues. However, many older dogs may well be doing these things as well, but it is possibly more relevant to puppies, but you never know. So we do tend to think of dogs, and especially puppies and sort of your younger adolescent dogs, as acting silly or being naughty on purpose. And then we try and stop them from acting a certain way. But actually what we need to always remember, especially with our younger dogs, is that they're still learning. We tend to think of puppy days as being sort of those first few weeks and months. Whereas actually their development into an adult dog can last anywhere, depending on your breed, up to 3 years. So just like we wouldn't expect a 10 or 12-year-old to act rationally and sensible all the time, we can't expect a year-old dog to be doing the same thing or a younger puppy to be doing the same thing. It takes them a really long time to develop and grow into their adult self. And obviously along that way, you're going to have lots of trials and tribulations and challenges, which we often say we see them as being our dog trying to test us or our dog being naughty, when in fact it is just them struggling with the world around them and needing a little bit of help. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today are things you may see when you're training, when you're out for a walk, or just generally in the house if you have got a younger dog, or in the garden perhaps, and what they actually mean. So things I'm looking at are, or things I see people ask me questions about quite a lot, are that their dog grabs hold of the lead and starts tugging with it and playing with it, when it's on, when they're on a walk, when they're training, that their dog jumps up at them, not to greet them, but for example in the middle of a walk, or when they're training, or when you're somewhere busy, they start jumping up and trying to get to you. They may be in the middle of learning and being really calm, or doing something, and all of a sudden they start nipping your hands, or they just refuse to talk to you almost. Sometimes it's being sort of, we look at two sides of the scale. We look at one of them being really, really, really overexcitable in our opinion. So the tugging on the lead, jumping up, nipping hands and fingers, and maybe barking in what we feel is excitement. And then you've also got the opposite end where all of a sudden your dog just goes, no, I'm not doing a thing you ask of me. I'm not going to listen to any instructions. I am not going to engage with you. I'm not going to do a thing for you, whether that's on a walk or in a training class. And say we tend to see these things as being naughty, but what we should recognise that, especially with younger dogs, these behaviours are actually normally linked to emotions. And it can be that your dog is overexcited, overwhelmed, tired, their brain hurts, they've just had too much input, and therefore they cope with it in the only way they know how, which is to act out, and to do silly things, which we see as being silly, but obviously for them they have a really, really, really important purpose. It's no different to if you have had toddlers or young children. You'll know when they are tired, they don't go, I'm really tired, could I have a nap please? If only. But they instead start being more grumpy, being more grudgety, being more, just tiresome almost. They want stuff, they want cuddles, they want attention. They might start getting grumpy and crying or throwing things. We just go, oh, it's a tired child. Why don't we do the same for puppies, eh? So when your dog is starting to tug on the lead, they are probably overexcited or really tired. Same with jumping up. If they suddenly start jumping up at you, it's possible that their brains have switched off. They're too tired. They don't know how to think anymore. They could be overwhelmed. They could be a little bit scared by a situation and they're seeking reassurance. Nipping at hands, it's really common because, they are focused and they're remembering, I must eat politely out of someone's hand. But when they get tired, they can't do it anymore. Sometimes, again, they will just refuse and just go, I'm just going to sit here and completely ignore you like we've never done any of these things before, because their brain's just switched off. So it's how your dog displays their emotions, their arousal and their excitements, and the big emotions that young dogs have. Normally, it does happen on a walk or, for example, when you're in puppy class or an adolescent dog class, purely because those situations are so stimulating for your dog, more so than we give them credit for, really, because your dog is not just learning what you want them to learn, they're taking in the world around them. They're in somewhere new where there's smells, there's other people around. So say, for example, they're in a dog training class, there's other people around, there's other dogs around. They're listening, they're learning, they're trying to take things in, they're taking all the things around them and then trying to learn something new. On a walk, yes, they may have walked beautifully down the road, but they've then seen 1,000,001 things. They've seen so many things. The smells keep changing. We can't always see when they're getting tired, and then all of a sudden they'll just start being what we see as being a naughty puppy, but they suddenly go, I can't take anymore, I'm so tired. They don't know that they're still 5 or 10 minutes from home and they've got to keep going. The behaviour happens and they just need to help themselves feel better. So the question is always, when these things happen, what do we do about it? And obviously, my sort of top advice is always to be proactive rather than reactive. That's easier said than done. So the best thing to do is start to analyse your dog. What is my dog doing? And why are they doing it? When are they doing it? So if you are sort of in one of these situations where all of a sudden your puppy that was behaving so beautifully suddenly starts to act out, just to make a mental note, if you want to write it down somewhere or send yourself a voice note, just make a note of what were they doing. So were they pulling on the lead? Did they start jumping up? When did it happen? So was it 10 minutes into the walk? Was it 5 minutes before you got home? Was it half an hour through a class? Was it after something big happened? So like a lorry went past, or after they said hello to another dog? When it happens, why it happens are so important, because it helps us. And keep a diary, keep a little note of it all over a course of like a week, because then you can start to see if there's a pattern or a routine. If your dog or puppy is always doing it 5 minutes before the end of their walk, shorten their walk by 5 minutes. Then hopefully they won't need to do it, because their tiredness will happen just as you get home. Is there a reason? Is it, for example, after they've seen a big lorry? Well, it tells us that lorries are incredibly scary and they create big emotions. Is it after certain things? Is it on certain days of the week? If you're taking them out twice a day, is it worse on the second walk rather than the first walk? Because it's so important for us to work out the situations it's happening in, because then we can help to, one, preempt it. And we can start to recognise the signs that are leading to it. And then we can almost respond to them before it happens. So keeping a diary is always my top advice for anything that you're struggling with, anything that your dog seems to do out of the blue. It's not going to be out of the blue. We just need to work out why it's happening and what the circumstances are. So keeping a diary is so important. And equally, looking at your dog and seeing, is there something they do beforehand? So for example, if your dog is tugging on the lead, before they start to tug on the lead, do you notice a change in their body language? Do they become a little bit more fizzy, almost, a little bit more agitated? Do they whine a little bit? Does their just demeanour change slightly? Because again, that tells us it's about to happen. It's about to happen. And then we can in future respond to it. So learning these things are really important. It's not just dogs being naughty and us having to tell them off. It's us working out, what do they need in this moment in time? Why are they doing it? And the why helps us work out what they need. Because if it's because they are tired, we simply need to shorten the amount of time we're out and about. If it's because there's something big and scary, then we know we need to work on improving their emotions around that big and scary thing. And they say this is adolescent dogs too, not just puppies. If it is because of excitement and they get really excited, because say, for example, we have just had a little run off lead, or we've been playing with another dog, or we've been playing with a toy, and then we start walking and they start tugging on the lead. We know it's purely excitement and their energy levels are still really, really high. And we have to help them to learn how to switch back off again, because unfortunately, puppies don't come with that self-regulation. Young dogs don't come with that self-regulation. And often they need some help and support to help them self-regulate. No different to our child needs us to help, or our children need us to help them learn how to self-regulate. Our puppies and our young dogs need it too. Sometimes adult dogs need help as well. So it's not just a young dog thing. But usually by the time they get to an adult dog, they have learnt a little bit more about self-regulation and how to help themselves out. So this pattern and routine is so important, because we can then learn what to do. So preempting it and looking at those sort of signs that it's going to happen will help, because you can then predict it. And if something's predictable, as we know, we can then learn to A, expect it, or B, avoid it. If things are unpredictable, it's a lot harder, because we simply don't know when it's going to happen. And if you don't know when it's going to happen, it feels like it's out of the blue. So keeping this diary means that you've got situations where you know are likely to lead to the unwanted, tugging on the lead, or nipping at hands and jumping up, etc. And then you can start to recognise the body language that happens before, see if it happens at the same point all the time, and we can preempt it. So if you have worked out what is the thing that's causing it, what is the body language change, what energy shifts in our dog, we can then go, it's going to happen after this. We can help our dog respond to their emotions or self-regulate. So how can dogs chill out? How can dogs self-regulate? The easiest way is by sniffing. Sniffing is calming and relaxing. So sniffing works it is like my go-to behaviour, or go-to avenue for dogs, because no matter what the situation, sniffing will always help. Or 99.9% of the time. If your dog is really excited, then sniffing helps to calm and relax. It's a de-stressing activity. If your dog is a little bit overwhelmed and got lots and lots of emotions, sniffing provides a feel-good factor. So it helps to boost happy emotions, and obviously helps to lower their stress levels a little bit as well. So if it's overwhelmed, I've just been playing, or there's a big lorry just gone past, sniffing will help them go, well, actually, it wasn't too bad because I got to do something really nice afterwards. But it'll help them to relax and overcome those emotions as well. If they are refusing to engage with you and their brain hurts, which, we all have had, after a busy day learning, you go, my brain's aching. Sniffing is calming and relaxing. So it will help, and it doesn't really need much. It's the most natural thing dogs can do. So it doesn't need much energy, so to speak, but it is nice to just get them moving and sniffing to relax a little bit. So sniffing is really, really useful. And it can be used as a preventative, but also as a solving the problem, being reactive. So if you notice your dog is starting to bubble up and get that little bit fizzy, or starting to have these big emotions, we can use sniffing as almost a way of stopping it and then bringing back down the emotions. And equally, if your dog is already doing all of these things, we can use sniffing to help interrupt it. So, for example, if your dog's tugging on the lead, the moment they stop, we can drop treats on the floor. If they're jumping up, they might just want a cuddle, but when they get back on the floor, we can sprinkle treats, not just give it to them by hand, because obviously if they're nippy and bitey and jumpy, they're going to start nibbling our fingers. We can drop the treat on the floor. So they're still getting rewarded for being down low, but the treat is happening on the floor, encouraging that sniff. It's so important to respond to our dog's emotions, because these things look like naughty behaviour, but they are so misunderstood, I suppose. And they become self-rewarding. So if your puppy learns that grabbing hold of the lead and giving it a good tug or chewing on it, and with puppies you especially see them chewing on it because they need to chew again. So sometimes it's just taking a chew out with you. They learn that behaviour gives them what they need. So tugging on the lead gets that energy into something. Pulling on the lead with their teeth, if they like to chew it, provides that satisfaction. Jumping up releases energy. It also generally gets your attention and some reassurance if they're a little bit nervous. Nipping hands, again, they like to have things in their mouth. So it becomes self-rewarding. And if something, we don't necessarily see it as being a self-rewarding behaviour because we just see it as being naughty. But if our dogs didn't get something from it, they wouldn't do it. So look back at one of our episodes about rewards, where we look at, a reward is something that provides a feel-good factor for our dog or provides a need for our dog, not just something we give them. If those behaviours that we deem as being silly or naughty or annoying are working for your dog, they will keep doing them. And it's cute having a little puppy tugging on the lead or jumping up at you, but it is not it's not fun or not cute having a big, fully grown dog doing those things. So the sooner we can interrupt and teach them a better alternative, the better. So think of these cute little things that your young dog does and say, do I want them to do that when they are 4? And if the answer is no, then we need to respond to it and help them out as soon as possible. So partly this is looking at, that naughty behaviour isn't always naughty behaviour, or what we see as being naughty. And what is naughty, we see it as being a pain and annoyance to us, but for dogs it works. So therefore we'll keep doing it. So to recap, if your dog is doing something silly or seen as being naughty, what does it actually mean? Keep a diary, recognise when it happens, why it happens. Is there a pattern? Is there a routine? You can then start to preempt it and help your dog to manage and self-regulate their own emotions by, for example, sniffing. That's not always a go-to for everybody, but it might be a first option. And then we can help them to respond to those emotions and help them calm down before teaching them a new way to self-regulate and avoid having fun doing the things that we see as being naughty. Hopefully that will help some of you who have got younger dogs to enjoy your time with them a little bit more and to help understand them a little bit more, because an understanding is obviously the most important thing when it comes to our dogs. Have a great week and I'll catch up with you all really soon. Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.